audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Leur 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs!
And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro on this Monday, June 17. It is 2 minutes past 10 p.m. Eastern. How is everyone doing for a live edition of the Sick Podcast? Because, of course, tonight the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers are not playing. They will be back in action tomorrow night in Florida for Game 5, where the Florida Panthers hope to dispose of the Edmonton Oilers, win the Stanley Cup for the first time in franchise history, and do it in front of their fans after getting absolutely obliterated last game in Edmonton. And if the Oilers don't win, still you're going to have some people saying that Connor McDavid is overrated and he's not very good and he's not as good as people think he is and that he can lead his team to a Stanley Cup and all that stupid stuff. And it's for that reason that I really hope that he wins. But very unfortunately, being down 3-1 after being down 3-0, obviously their backs are up against the wall and it will take nothing short of a miracle to come back, win this series and win the Stanley Cup. But I really am hoping for that. And if it doesn't happen, I really am happy to see the Florida Panthers win the Stanley Cup. They've been in the league since 1990, was it 94 or 96 or whatever it is, when they came into expansion and they went to the Stanley Cup final in their first year, if memory serves me well, and got swept by the Colorado Avalanche. And obviously got to the final last year and lost. I'd really love to see them win for all those reasons that we just talked about. And of course, also for my buddy Roberto Luongo, who unfortunately as a player never won a Stanley Cup. It is the Sick Podcast, and it is brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group. Once again, recognized as one of Canada's top fleet employers for the 4th consecutive year. The prestigious accolade underscores their steadfast dedication to fostering a workplace of excellence and opportunity, much in part to their exceptional team for their unwavering commitment and contribution. Energy Transportation Group is a top fleet employer. You know, yesterday was Father's Day, and for Father's Day, Energy Transportation Group put up a video of one of their owners, Mike Cinquino, with his dad, Lucho, who, of course, has a ton of experience in the trucking business and passed on his passion for the trucking business and his expertise to his son, Mike, who basically, when he grew up, that's pretty much all he knew because his father was working it and he was around it. And Mike has been able to take over in the father's footsteps. And obviously what he and Sean Girard and David Grassi and staff have been able to do with Energy Transportation Group is something remarkable. It was a beautiful video. It was very, very touching. And Mike Cinquino and his father, Lucho, man, I love those guys. The Sick Podcast is also brought to you in part by Bittt at Tibi, a winner of a dozen international awards. Bittt at Tibi offers quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. Bittt at Tibi, embrace your true nature. Speaking of awards, Aldo Geloso gets an award for one of the funniest guys and smartest guys that I ever met in my life. Also brought to you in part by Playground. Play lucky numbers at Playground. Earn your entries daily and return every Sunday for a chance to win a share of the $15,000 in cash prizes with a $5,000 top prize. And on July 28, one lucky winner will take home $10,000 at the $30,000 finale. Visit playground.ca for details. And should you make your way there, and I hope you do, I'm there quite often, make sure you go by and say hello to Danny with the yellow tie. Without further ado, I bring him in every now and then. He comes on and we do this Ask Me Anything or Ask Us Anything. And tonight's going to be one of those nights from Sportsnet at sportsnet.ca. Eric Engels, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, Tony?
It's all good, man. Thank you for doing this on a Monday night at 10 p.m., especially with the weather being so nice. I would have thought you would have been in the backyard right now with a nice glass of wine, with your shoes off and your feet up on a table in some pretty nice company.
Sounds like a great way to spend the night, but there's nobody I'd rather be with than you right now.
I appreciate you saying that, but man,
almost nobody. All right, almost.
I hear you. Okay,
almost
that's a lot better. All right, okay. I want to give a shout out one more to Betway, a leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. Go on betway.com or scan the QR code to join the action. Must be 18 and play responsibly. And special thanks to Betway for presenting you with the NHL draft coverage of 2024. The Sick Podcast will be there with Tony Marinaro, Grant McCagg, and Shane Gomons. Recruits Draftcast podcast. Shane will be in Vegas, and Jimmy Murphy and Pierre Maguire, the Sick Podcast eye test, will also be broadcasting from Vegas. So 3 podcasts will be broadcasting from Vegas the week of the draft. I leave next week. Looking forward to it. All right. Hey, it's funny because every time we put it out there, ask us anything, and we put it out there on Twitter or X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. There's all kinds of questions coming in. You and I think, had planned, you know what? You ask me a couple of questions. I ask you a couple of questions, and we might still do it. But I've been told that the amount of questions we have is like, if we start now, we'll probably finish by the weekend.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think we're going to start now.
It's your show, my friend.
Yeah, but we're not going to finish on the weekend because abbreviated versions of the Sick Podcast in the summer, so we can all have that glass of wine. So give or take in 30, 35 minutes from now, that's it for us for tonight. Okay. So without further ado, why don't Shane Gaumont and Master Control, you bring a couple of questions, and away we go. Louis Eric Lauzon, what would be your reaction if the Habs drafted Dickinson or Levshunov, considering they have not traded a young defenseman before the draft? Eric, you want to tackle it?
Well, first of all, I'd be really surprised if Levshunov is still there at 5th overall. If they end up with either one of those two guys, it would mean that a lot of the forwards went in the top 4, outside of Macklin Celebrini, obviously, who's going number 1. That's the one that we definitely know for sure. So would I be surprised? I mean, if I were the Canadians, I'd be pleasantly surprised if Levshunov was sitting there. We've talked about this before. Their depth on the right side of their blue line is not quite what it is on the left side. And if for whatever comes to pass, they feel that Dickinson is the best player that they could possibly get at 5th overall, and they decide to select him, it'll be because they view him as, a future number 1 defenseman, that they don't necessarily have that in their pool, despite what they have as pretty strong position. And I think they'll go acquire a forward in a different way. We talked about this last week. There's a lot of different options. I think the word I used was permutations that could go down where they end up with top end talent at forward. It doesn't have to be done 5th overall. But this is the type of scenario that I don't really envision going down anyways, because I do believe, and I strongly believe this, that there's a really good chance that one of the 2 or 3 forwards that they really have an eye for will be available at 5th overall. Yeah, and I believe that too, and I believe they're going to draft the forward. Now, having said that, Sam Dickinson, I saw a Q&A earlier today. I don't know if you read it as well on X. Did you have a chance to read it? Sam Dickinson? By any chance? He grew up a Canadiens fan? I saw something.
He grew up a Montreal Canadiens fan, yeah. Born and raised in Toronto. But his dad was a Montreal Canadiens fan and told Sam and his brother, you're going to have to hate the Leafs and be Canadiens fans. And that's just the way it is. So Sam Dickinson said, you know what? We just went along with it. So, you know what? Pretty cool things to say the week before the draft. That's one of them. If you want Montreal Canadiens fans to become enamored with you, or a week and a half before the draft. And he had a chance to say it. So now all of a sudden, even though most Montreal Canadiens fans want the Canadiens to draft a forward, should they draft a defenseman, everyone wants it to be Dickinson, which is pretty funny. All right, okay. Other questions. Let's bring them up. Dylan says, Tony, can you see a situation where the Habs and Columbus swap picks 4 and 5 with the Habs taking a contract back or adding a sweetener? To tell you the truth, I can't. I can't see the Canadians swapping picks 4 and 5. I mean, I don't really know what the incentive for Columbus would be, unless, of course, Columbus knows which player the Canadians want, if the Canadians really want one more than the other. and Columbus puts it out there that they're going to draft that player that the Canadians really want, and then the Canadians might pick up the phone and call and say, but when was the last time 4 swapped with 5 in a back contract? I mean, I would say 99.9% no. I don't see that happening. Eric?
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I mean, I think it would be a stretch to imagine. And I think, I guess there's a lot of speculation regarding Columbus and because Patrick Laine might be available. But, as much as that contract could be prohibitive for some teams, and for Columbus, if they want to move down to 5 because they feel impartial about what they'll get between 4 and 5, and they feel they'll get who they want if they move down one spot, it's not like they're just trying to shed that contract. Like, if they're going to trade that player, they have to get something pretty good back in return. And, we've been over this ground quite a bit that you just don't see like a lot of trades into the top 5 of the draft. Like, it hasn't happened in a really long time, and I don't expect it to happen again for a really long time. And maybe this year, I guess, with all the uncertainty around that top 4, the speculation will get to a whole other level in terms of what teams might try to do. But I have a hard time envisioning how this ends up fitting. And really, from Montreal's end of it, they'd have to feel so strongly about a player, because you think about what they'd actually have to give up to make that happen, to incentivize Columbus to even consider doing that. When you say 99.9%, I would tend to agree with you on the odds on that.
Yeah. All right. Let's go for a third question of the night. Darren, Habs and Avs. If the Habs traded up from 26 overall to the 12-15 range and Seneca and Yzerman are off the board, who's your pick?
Well, if you're asking me, and that ends up being the case, I can't help but wonder if somebody like Hellenius has slipped through the cracks somehow, because that's a player for me that for sure is going to be a really good NHL player. So, I mean, I don't know if the Canadians were to, but I would think that if the Canadians were to try to move into that slot, into that area, it would be because one of those 2 players was actually there. You have a guy who could be the top goal scorer in this draft outside of Macklin Silver. I'd love to know who you're waving at. Who is it?
Yeah. So my son.
You have a mystery guess?
Yeah. So there we go. Yeah. So my son sneaked in because I got a fridge here, and he went to get himself some toast because he's going to make himself like a grilled cheese or whatever he makes himself. And he was just sneaking in. I haven't seen him for like hours because, when they get to a certain age, they don't really care about their fathers all that much. They just leave the house for pretty much the whole day. So I just said, and there he is. You want to look at the camera one more time? There
he is. He's a beaut.
I love this kid, man. I love this kid. Go ahead, Eric.
No, I was just saying, like, if you have a scenario where the Canadians are trading to that 12-15 range, it's probably because they believe somebody like Seneca is available to them, or somebody like Yzerman is available to them. If those 2 guys happen to have gone earlier, maybe somebody like Hellenius has somehow slipped through the cracks, or Catton. I really don't see any of that happening, to be honest with you. But I do really think that it could be a strong possibility the Canadians draft 5th overall and end up moving that Winnipeg pick along with some other assets to get themselves into that range 10 to 15, because they have their eye on a player that might slip through for other teams, but they believe will be a player that helps them in the future and be a part of their core. So I think that opportunity might be there. Whereas we were just talking about how unrealistic it might be to get further up the order from 5 to 1, obviously not 1 being on the table, even 5 to 4. I think there's a much better chance that they package 26 and assets to move into that 10 to 15 range if they can get in there and get another player.
Yeah. If Simo the Snake Boisvert was here and he was asked that question, he would say Trevor Connolly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
maybe that's another guy. Yeah.
Trevor Connolly, obviously, he's in that discussion for top 15. There's no doubt about it. All right. Okay. Back with another question. Let's go. Here we go. QMJHL_fanhouse. Thoughts on the possibility of trading the late first-round pick and David Reinbacher to add a skilled forward via trade, a Neshes or a Zegras. By the way, I received a message from someone who knows how to pronounce the name, and it is Martin Neshes.
Okay.
And selecting one of the top D that's available with the 5th overall pick. So trading the late first round pick and Reinbacher to add a skilled forward and selecting one of the top D that's available with the 5th overall pick. It's creative thinking, actually, whether you would want to do it or not. I understand the logic to the madness.
How many fans would trade number 5 overall right now for one of those two players? What percentage would you say would trade number 5? The Canadians have number 5 overall for one of those two players. Is it less than 10% that would be willing to do that?
I would think those who are of the thought process of the Canadians need to get better right away and try and make the playoffs at all costs would be in on that. And those who say, let this rebuild take its course naturally and don't skip any steps, don't take any shortcuts. And knowing that you have a couple of big contracts on the horizon that you're going to give out to Kaden Guhle and especially to Jaroslavsky, drafting a player who will give you cost certainty and be under $1 million per year for the first 3 years is a pretty nice situation to have.
So you would agree Canadians fans are pretty informed and that the majority of them would fall into that second category.
I would say the majority would not trade the 5th pick overall for one of those two players.
So why would you trade the 5th pick overall from last year plus another first round pick to get one of those two players?
Because
I'm not sure how
I'm not saying, well, because some scouts are saying that 5th pick, David Reinbacher, probably wouldn't be a top 10 pick this year.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not willing to make that bet. I think David Reinbacher is going to be a really good player. And so I don't, the logic doesn't really wash for me in trading the guy who was chosen 5th overall last year plus another first round pick to get one of those two players.
But 26th overall is closer to a second round pick than it is a first round pick. So I understand the logic and look.
But it's asset value, no?
Yes,
like,
you're right about that.
The thing about the 26th overall pick is you can look at it that way, or you can look at it as it could be something that moves you up the order combined with another asset. Therefore, its value is a lot higher than what a second round pick would be. So I don't know. I think if you were talking about trading Reinbacher straight up for one of those two players, then, it's a discussion that you have to think about. I'd be very reluctant to do it, though, because of what we talked about. Now the creative part of the question there is would you just select a D at 5th overall if you're moving Reinbacher? And if a big right-handed D is available, even better, because let's face it, that depth on their right side, if you trade Reinbacher, has gone from small to minuscule, so I think these are things that have to be considered if you're the Canadians and an offer like that comes across the table.
Yeah, look, according to some scouts, some, not all, Lev Shunov, Silyev, Byam, Dickinson, just to name a few, are rated higher than what Reinbacher was a year ago, or more regarded. But once again, like that's these kids have a career in front of them. This is the hardest thing to actually. It's the hardest job in hockey is the job of the amateur scout and trying to project, because even if if you are going to select on what they are right now, you can understand the method to the madness. I think everyone knows who a better player is today, but trying to project who's going to end up having a better career and who's got a higher ceiling, man, that's a hard thing to do.
I know, right? I made a pretty long, 2 weeks ago, I made a really long-winded point about that, and I think people took some offense to it. The main point I was trying to make is that...
Why did they take offense to it? Why?
I don't know. I think they thought that I was saying nobody knows anything. Like, I was trying to say that the job that goes into amateur scouting and the amount of work that goes into it, we can't possibly, from the outside looking in, match what they have to do. And even saying that, it's the hardest job in the world to project 5 years out and know what a player is going to be for sure. So, I get how people feel about Reinbacher, especially coming off a year where Cloten was a disaster and it wasn't necessarily great for his development in terms of what we saw in the on-ice product. But I'd be reluctant to start talking about all these defensemen who are going to be in the top 10. Like, I think it's a little recency bias. I'm not suggesting that, listen, all 5 of the guys you just named could end up being surefire number 1 defensemen who are all better than David Reinbacher. Could end up happening. But I'd be reluctant to say that's for sure going to be the case.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about Yakimchuk.
Yeah, and I think very highly of David Reinbacher.
And we didn't talk about Perrick either.
He already does things at his age that it would take some of those guys you just mentioned a couple of years to get under their belt to accrue those types of skills and the way of thinking of the game and the reaction speed and all that stuff. His floor is extremely high. His ceiling is the thing that everybody questions. I think he's going to be a top 4 defenseman no matter what. I think he has a good chance of becoming a top 3, top 2 defenseman.
Well, Eric, with the 5th pick overall, I hope so. He's going to become a
I
top
know.
4.
And some of those guys they could end up being number 1. So we'll see.
You know, we talk about scouting, right? And I think a good scout's able to tell, who's got a better skating stride and how good a skater a player is or isn't, how hard their shot is, how quick their release is, how they see the game, their hockey IQ. Those are things that you can tell. What you don't know is how that player lives 24 hours a day. What you don't know is what that player does in their time off to prepare. What you don't know is what that player does in their time off to get better. What you don't know is if it'll, just take that player longer, if that player is going to be a late bloomer. What you don't know is if that player is going to have a growth spurt, if that player is going to be able to put on 4 or 5 inches, 30, 40 pounds. There's so many unknowns. My God, it's hard. And then I would never want to be a scout because it's the margin for errors. It's a pretty big margin.
Look, if you go back to 2012, I think everybody in Montreal wanted the Canadiens to take Alex Galchenyuk with the 3rd overall pick.
Yeah.
Like, everybody was looking at the talent of this player saying, okay, he missed a year with an ACL injury, but look at this kid. He's on the ice every day. The reports that were coming out, he's on the ice every day with his dad, with the coaches, doing extra work. He's got a great character, great attitude, unbelievable skill, possibly the most skilled player in the draft. If he had played this year, he probably would have challenged Yakupov for number 1. And you think about it, like the scouts and the people involved in that decision had so much more information than what we knew, and they still kind of got the wool pulled over their eyes a little bit. They still, weren't able to make the exact assessment that would lead them to make the most confident decision possible that this kid was going to turn into the big center that everybody had been waiting for in Montreal for a long time. And there was a time where it looked like it was going to happen, especially early on. And then, that's why we talk about 3 to 5 years, because you look down the line and all of a sudden the story changes dramatically. And you start looking at the red flags that were up there the day of the draft or right before it. And all of a sudden those start to prevail over the green flags. And you're like, how did this happen?
I got a funny story for you. 2003 draft, Canadiens draft Andre Kostitsyn with the 10th pick overall. Today, a lot of Canadiens fans obviously will look at it and they say, man, that was the wrong pick for one of the deepest drafts in the history of the National Hockey League, which was, of course, the draft year of Marc-Andre Fleury.
Best first round ever.
Shea Weber, Corey Perry, Ryan Getzlaff, Ryan Kessler, Zach Parise, Brent Burns. The list goes on and on. They were all drafted that year. And so when the Canadiens drafted Kostitsyn, at the time we were told that, the only concern was that he was taking medication for a form of epilepsy or something, right? Mm-hmm. But everyone was saying best pure talent in the draft. And some said, wow, this kid could end up being the steal of the draft. So, when we talk about sometimes getting information, obviously the Canadiens didn't have this information that I'm going to tell you right now, but one scout of an NHL team told me the night before the draft, we crossed Kostitsyn's name off of our list. We knew we were not drafting him. And I said, Why? And he said, we saw him downtown and he was smoking a cigarette. The night.
I mean, that's an interesting one.
The night.
I mean, like
the night before the draft.
Some of the greatest players of all time used to smoke in between periods or on the bench. Like, not necessarily on the bench, but just exaggerating. You know, when it came to Kostitsin,
you know who had a very long career with the Canadians and smoked quite a bit?
Guy Lafleur.
But besides Lafleur and his, he's legendary. But someone that you and I have covered over the last 20 some odd years.
I don't want to out anybody, but I'm not sure who.
Markov.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody now and then has enjoyed a dart here or there, but I think it's less a thing now. To be honest with you. It's changed, obviously, as society has a little bit. I will say this. I've spoken to executives who took part in that draft who said the only reason that Kostitsin went as far as 10 is because of that epileptic concern. He was, in terms of raw skill, unbelievable. Unbelievable talent, unbelievable strength.
Yeah, just was never able to put it together, right? You saw flashes, but you never.
27-goal season.
You never saw it consistently.
With Montreal. That year, the Kovalev put up 84 points playing with Plekanec and Kostitsin, and they were just one of the best lines in the NHL.
And I think a top power play in the league, right? Where they nodded.
Yeah, number one.
Yeah.
They had a run of 5 years in a row where they were top 5 in the league on the power play. 4 or 5 years, 1 year they were 13th.
Yeah.
So they were pretty good. That when you stack those one-timers between Markov, Surrey, Kovalev, and then Camilleri coming in, they had a pretty good run on the power play, and a guy on the zone entry like Gomez. They were good.
Yeah.
Kurt Haller's famous line, "Show me good players, I'll show you good power play."
All right. Okay. Back to some more questions. It's funny, every now and then we go off and it makes for some pretty good discussion. If Lindstrom and Demidov are gone at 5, who would be Eric's prediction to be the pick? Could this player be drafted by Montreal even if one of the two players mentioned above is available? So if Lindstrom and Demidov are gone at 5, who do you think their pick is? Basically, Eric, he's asking you if you think the Canadians are going to draft Iginla, Yzerman, or Seneca.
Like, it's such a hard question to answer because if those two guys happen to go, so Macklin goes first and those two guys go, is Levshunov still available? Like, it's possible, right? If that ends up being the case, that both those guys are gone already. Because if he is, that's probably the guy that I would take. But if he's gone, Iginla would be the guy I would take.
Yeah.
I wouldn't feel as though I was reaching at all doing it at 5th overall. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I would definitely take Iginla too. I would. Mind you,
I feel like you would take Iginla above everybody, no matter who's available.
I would. Iginla's very high on my list, but I don't pretend to be an expert at the draft because I have not.
Neither.
I have not seen these players very much. I mean, I see them a little bit. I talked to a couple of people, and I draw my own conclusions. But I'm high on Iginla. But I got to tell you, I'm high on Beckett Seneca too. I really am. Okay, some more. Pierre-Alexandre Garnon. Why I'll say Anthony Mantha is not a Hab option. Because the league is 5-on-5 and not 3v3. I think that's one. I think the Canadians have a certain culture that they're trying to build, and players who can't bring it every night are going to be weeded out. And it's too bad because, Anthony Mantha has a certain skill set. Here's a guy who can score goals. There's no doubt about it. He's got a heavy shot. He's 6'5". We talked about Patrick Laine the other day. He would kind of be like a poor man's Laine. But when we talk about players that just haven't been able to put it together, all of it together consistently over time, there's a player, Eric. I see him in the 3v3 in the offseason. You know what? He's kind of like a 3v3 player. He's a player who doesn't go back into his zone all that much, doesn't like it. And if he ever finds a coach who will be able to close his eyes just for Anthony Mantha Anthony Mantha is going to have a lot of success there, but that's hard to find in 2024.
I saw some flashes this year, and we've seen some flashes throughout his career. I mean, he definitely has an exceptional talent for scoring goals, although when he went to Vegas, I think in 18 games had 3 of them. Let me make sure I'm getting that right. Yeah, 3 goals in 18 games, and he had 3 goals in the playoffs since 7, so that was pretty good. He's just, at 29 years old, I'm not sure what's going to be available to him on the market. Is he for sure an unrestricted free agent? First of all, he might be. I'm pretty sure.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. So, what would it take to get him here where it would make sense to put him in? It's hard to really figure that out. Like if it's think about what he's done, what he'll probably earn as an unrestricted free agent. He's probably looking at a deal that could be 3-4 years, 5 years if he gets really lucky. It doesn't really fit with what the Canadians are trying to do and how they're trying to build, not at his age. So
yeah, he was a 4-year contract, which was up at the end of this year, a 4-year deal at $5.7 million a year cap hit for Anthony Mantha.
I think if he gets 4 years, he's probably looking at a little bit less than that, given what's happened over the last couple of years with him. But if he gets less years, he's looking at more. Either way, it doesn't really fit with the Canadians, the culture element that they want players that are really going to show up. And if they're going to take a risk on one that is a pure goal scorer that has a potential to kind of revive their career in such a way that it would be worth it, it's got to be a guy who puts the puck in the net a lot more frequently than he does.
A shout out to Mecamoto. Mecamoto is a Moto Guzzi Piaggio and Vespa dealer. They've been around for 100 years. On Thursday, June 27, they're having an all-day open house. Pop in to do road tests all day. Mecamoto 4398 de la Roche, www.mecamoto.ca.ca. I had my Vespa tuned up there last week. When you hit 1,000 kilometers, they got to change the oil, maybe change the belt, change a few things. And they gave me an incredible tune-up and incredible service, and we thank them very much. And once again, jot it down on your calendar, Thursday, June 27, road tests all day. That dealership has been open for 100 years, and Jean-Francois, the owner, has been there for the last 10 as owner of that dealership. All right, more questions. Tony, what's your prediction on how Portugal will do at the Euro 2024? Keeping it sick. Why am I getting these on a Habs show? I
want to know, though.
I think Portugal's going to do very well. I think they've lost like 3 of their last 30-something games. Their manager used to coach Belgium, and he underachieved considerably. It's Cristiano Ronaldo's last kick at the can. They don't have much of a weakness on their team. I think they're going to go real far. And by the way, France was dealt a serious blow today. Broken nose for Kylian Mbappe. He had surgery, and he's going to be out of the group phase at the very least. His Euro 2024 tournament might be over. Wouldn't that be bad news for France? All right, okay, next. Tony, with the news about Lidstrom's injury, do you still take him if Demidov, Iginla, and Seneca are still available at 5? Taylor Marshall obviously is talking about the herniated disc injury for Caden Lidstrom, who tells everyone, hey, I got a clean bill of health. His agent, and they're willing to give medical records to anyone who asks to see them.
I'd like to know if that's confirmed, Tony.
He says he trains 5 to 7 days a week and stuff like that. But
we had heard that there was buzz around this that it was a muscular issue. I don't, I'm not sure exactly where it was reported that he has a herniated disc.
Injuries scare people. Back injuries scare people.
I understand, but there's a big difference between a muscular issue and a herniated disc.
Of course, yeah. So, a muscular issue, a little bit of Voltaren, and away par la.
Now that all the teams have seen those reports, I'd do some digging myself just to find out if that's in fact true. Because there's a big difference between those two things. What was actually circulating that was a muscular issue, and a report that's out there that it was a herniated disc. So
yes. And osteo always helps, and maybe for a day or two, a couple of naproxen to bring down the inflammation. Look at me. You could tell I spent a lot of time with physios and osteos in my life. All right, okay. Next. Eric Diorio. Which defenseman starts with the Habs next season? Which defenseman starts with the Habs next season? Eric?
It's a question for September.
Yes, it's a question for September. Eric and I are willing to bet on Caden Gooley. We're willing to bet on Mike Matheson. We're willing to bet on Lane Hudson. You're not willing to bet on Lane Hudson?
I can't until we know who's invited to camp come September, because a lot can happen between now and September.
Yeah.
I'm not, I think it's very likely Lane Hudson is going to play in the NHL next year. Don't get me wrong. I just don't know if I'd put him in 10 on the opening lineup.
I think Lane Hudson's better in the NHL than he is in the AHL.
So do I.
Yeah.
So do I, but that doesn't mean that he won't play games there. He's one player
You're right.
can go there without having to pass through waivers. And until I know who all the defensemen are that are coming to camp, I won't put him in 10 in the opening night.
And you're right. The fact that he would be able to, avoid waivers, that sometimes plays a pretty big role in who stays up and who goes down. Why don't we do 2 more?
I just don't want it to seem like we're ducking the question. It's just
you're right.
If 2 left-handed defensemen get traded in the next month, then it's a very different answer. So
2 more.
Yeah.
Steph Manfredi, will the Habs finally reunite with Tyler Toffoli and sign him? I would say no.
I'd say the chances are very, very low on that.
I would say that ship has sailed.
But all things considered, the Canadians really like Tyler Toffoli, and Tyler Toffoli loved being in Montreal.
Yeah, things have changed since he left, though. They're trying to be more of a skating team. He's not known as.
Yeah, but he's
not slow. He gets there.
He deserves whatever contract he's going to get. He had 32 goals this year.
Yeah.
He deserves some security. He deserves some opportunity to get trade protection after moving around quite a bit.
Signed with Canadians at a discount. Remember, Marc Bergevin went to meet with him in LA, and Marc Bergevin was up against the cap. And
it was the pandemic, and there was a lot of variables at the time. Now the cap is going up. He put up 32 goals. I think he deserves a 4-year contract. I don't think he would get that from the Canadians. Would he be willing to take a 3-year deal to come here? It could be enticing for them if they're looking for options by the time July 1 and the market opens. So I'm not saying that it's going to happen. I think it's very unlikely, like I said, but it's not impossible.
I take him on my team, but no doubt about it.
I would take him on my team any day. I think he still has the possibility of being a top 6 forward for at least the next couple of years.
Yeah.
And
he and his wife really loved it here, right? And I would imagine
they adored it here.
Yeah, and I would imagine, where they must be today, eh?
They're probably celebrating Jake Evans at his wedding.
That's right. In Ireland. I would imagine that they're there because, of course, they are best friends. Last one. Tony Marinaro. Tony and Eric, if Kent Hughes is not willing to sacrifice assets like Joshua Roy, David Reinbacher, Logan Mailloux, Lane Hudson to acquire a star forward, do you think he looks at the UFA pool like Teravainen, Stamkos, or Marchessault? Yes, I think he looks at the UFA pool.
Yeah, it's all on the table. Look, they're going to Kent Hughes is going to work to make the Canadians better, not just to build a Stanley Cup contender, to be better for next year. And he's not just going to sign anybody or trade for anybody to do that. He wants it to make sense with his long-term plan and his vision.
Yeah.
But there is going to be opportunity out there through free agency if they don't fill it through trade. The question is, it's too early to say what kind of free agents they'd be after before knowing exactly what they have cooking on the trade market, right?
Yeah.
But say they strike out in trades, say that just the type of player that they're looking for isn't available to them for the price they're willing to pay. I think you could expand that list quite a bit in terms of the free agents they would look at. And I wouldn't just be looking at the older guys who you might be able to sign for 2-3 years. I'd be looking at some of the younger guys on the list. Like I'm not saying the Canadians are going down this road, believe me. But if I were them, I would look at a guy like Jake DeBrusk at 27 years old, look at what he's done in the playoffs over the last number of years. It's funny, the conversation around him in Boston over the last number of years has kind of been like, oh, he's inconsistent. He's a typical middle six, top six forward option who goes on streaks here and there. But when the games matter, he always shows up. And I don't think if the Canadians were interested that they'd be the only ones. I think there would be a lot of teams, but that's the type of free agent where I look at and say, you know what? He's 27 years old. He has a proven track record. It wouldn't scare me so much to give him a 5-6 year deal. So we'll see. I don't know if they're going to go down that road. I don't necessarily think they will, but I'm just saying that the options shouldn't just be limited to all the older guys or, sign a 1-year deal with somebody who can at least score for it. I think they're going to be looking at a lot of different options.
Eric, one of our viewers actually threw out a soccer question before and asked about Portugal. Well, listen, I don't know what your plans are on Thursday afternoon, but if by any chance you want to watch the Italy and Spain game, I'm going to tell you exactly where I'm going to be, and let's bring it up, because this Thursday, June 20th, I'm going to be at Kitchen 73 in Laval, hanging out with Rob and his staff at 1661 Boulevard de l'Avenir. Going to watch the game at 3 p.m., give or take till about 5 p.m., and once that game is over, the Sick Podcast is going live for a Sick Podcast post-game show to talk about Italy and Spain. Here's the kicker. Not only will we be watching a great soccer game of obviously two national teams that everyone knows have a very, very long history of excellence when it comes to soccer, but Robert has put together a buffet. So it's worth the trek to get out to Laval if you're not going to be in Laval. For only $15 per person, a buffet of pizza, pasta, fries, and more. I look forward to it. So I'll be at Kitchen 73 Laval this Thursday, June 20th at 3 p.m. Come join me and watch Italy versus Spain with me and hundreds of others. Eric, thanks so much for your time tonight, my man. I really appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
It's a pleasure. You're not going to be in that black T-shirt in the promo, though. You're going to be in the Italian jersey.
I will be in an Italian. Well, if I can fit into one. If not, I'll be wearing my Italian colors. Yeah.
And you're going to put on a bib for the pizza, the pasta, the French fries, and whatever else.
Maybe I'll just get a shirt like this one, but it'll say vert, blanc, et rouge, and not bleu, blanc, et rouge. Thanks, Eric. We'll talk to you soon. All right. Marinaro, special thanks to Energy Transportation Group. Special thanks to Bittt Tibi. Special thanks to Playground. Special thanks to Betway. And special thanks to Mecamoto. Also want to thank you all for watching and listening. If you like it, comment sick, share with your friends. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love. And join me on Thursday, June 20th to watch Italy versus Spain at 3 p.m. at Kitchen 73 in Laval on Boulevard de l'Avenir. For Shane Gameau and Master Control, we'll be back tomorrow night. I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBi.tb, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.